Hello, welcome to Tabletop CP, and today we're doing a follow-up of sorts to our bolt action list building video that we did last week. And we're going to be doing a video on list building in chain of command. So you don't actually build lists per se in chain of command, as the platoons are all laid out for you, and you simply pick the support that you're going to attach to those platoons. But for lack of a better term, we'll just call it list building for chain of command. So we're going to use the Germans from the rule book as our example in this video. And the Germans have several different platoons that you can pick from in the rule book. Most of them, I believe, are Normandy era and later, as are all the other nations in the rule book as well. But we're going to just talk about the Germans. So our first example here will be the German infantry platoon. This is your basic German infantry platoon. At the top of the box here we see it says platoon force rating. So force rating in chain of command is a way to kind of even the odds between weaker and stronger platoons. So essentially you would take the force rating of each platoon and you would get the difference between the two, and that would be the amount of points that the weaker platoon would get, support points extra on top of whatever they're going to get for the mission. So it's a way to balance the platoons out a little bit. So as you can see here, we have two different types of ratings that this platoon can be run as. It can be run as a regular platoon, which their force rating would be 0, or it can be run as a green infantry platoon. Their force rating would be -5. So in this case, if these two platoons were fighting each other and the regular platoon would have a regular force rating of 0, green would be -5. The difference between those two is 5 points. So the weaker green platoon would get 5 additional support points on top of their mission support points. So that's how force morale or force rating works. And the next down we have the command dice. It's usually always 5. Some really elite platoons might get 6. Some really bad platoons might get only 4. Generally you're always going to see 5 though. Below that we have our platoon headquarters box. So this shows our senior leader. This platoon only happens to have one senior leader. Others have 2. But in this case, we have an Unterfeldwebel senior leader armed with a machine pistol. And also, as part of the platoon headquarters, is a 2-man Panzerschreck team. So this can be commanded by the platoon leader, or it can act independently on a 1. Below that, we have the squads. So it says squads 1 to 3, which means there's 3 squads, all identical in this platoon. Each squad is going to be led by an Obergurfreiter junior leader armed with a machine pistol, and he's going to have 1 Panzerfaust. So the Panzerfaust does not necessarily need to be modeled on the Mini. It's just known that the squad leader has one, and if he wants a team within his command range to use it, they'll just be able to use it. It just keeps it simple. So the next box down we have our squad layout. All 3 squads are going to be the same. We have a 6-man rifle team, so it's just what it says, 6 guys with rifles. That's 1 team, and then we have an LMG team. So in this case, it's an MG34 or MG42 with 2 crew and 1 rifleman. So that is the basic German infantry platoon. So just as an example of another type of German platoon, we'll look at the German Fallschirmjäger platoon. So you can see their force rating. They have an elite level that they can be at a +10. So let's say this platoon was facing a -5 green platoon. That green platoon would get 15 support points just right off the bat for the force rating difference. But elite platoons are very good. I won't go into how they work, but let's just say they're really good, and it's pretty much not advised to use them too often because they can be really hard to beat. More of a special thing for special missions, I would say. So anyway, we have our +10 elite force rating. We have our +4 regular force rating. And these force ratings are based on the squad or the platoon kind of composition and the weapon loadouts and how much stuff they have in them. That determines what the force rating is. And there's a CoC calculator that you can get that spells out how all this stuff works out. So I'll try to remember to put the link to that into the description. So anyway, we move down. So we got 5 command dice for regulars, and here we have our 6 command dice for elite units. The platoon headquarters in this case is a lieutenant senior leader with the machine pistol. There's also a second senior leader in this one, which would be your platoon sergeant, and he's going to have a machine pistol as well. And then there's a 2-man Panzerschreck team. And then our squads are 3 squads again, led by an Obergurfreiter with machine pistol and 2 Panzerfaust. And then this time we have 2 LMG teams. One is an MG42 with 2 crew and 2 extra riflemen. And the other was an MG42 with 2 crew, 2 extra riflemen, and then 1 guy with a machine pistol. So you can see the platoon composition of these two vary quite greatly. So just a lot of different options you can take. There's a Panzer Grenadier platoon as well. And then, of course, all the other nations have various platoons in the rulebook as well. There's also tons of fan-made and Lardy-made lists for all kinds of nations and all kinds of theaters. And I'll put a link to the a list for that. I believe it's in the Tiny Hoards blog. So I'll try to put a list. He has them all. He's gathered them all and consolidated them into one list, which is quite handy. So I'll try to remember to put a link for that as well into the description. All right, so now we have our platoons picked out. We know how much the force rating difference is going to be, so we know how many automatic support points the weaker platoon is going to get. Next thing we'll do is we'll go to our mission. The missions in the book, and basically all missions, will tell you how many support points you're going to get. Usually it's a random number, and almost always you're going to have the attacker getting the full amount rolled, and the defender will get half of that. Then once you determine that, then you apply your force rating difference to the weaker platoon, and then you start picking your support. So this is where the list building, air quotes, comes in for chain of command. And it comes in on the support list. So on the screen here, we have the German support lists 1 through 6. I believe in the rulebook it goes up to like 10 or 11. It's pretty high. The rulebook support lists are quite extensive. They cover most of the entire war. A lot of the fan-made and Lardy-made specialized lists for certain theaters and certain periods of the war. They'll have a lot more limited stuff to choose from, as it'll be focused on that one particular battle or that particular campaign. So looking at this, let's just say we got 10 points. What you can do, where it says list 1, list 2, list 3, that's the number of support points that everything costs below that number. So for list 2, for example, for 2 points, you can get a roadblock, a Panzerschreck team, a 5cm mortar, a Panzerknacker team, an extra senior leader, or a pregame barrage. So if we had, well, we'll say we have 6 points, just because that's what we have on the screen here. So with our 6 points of support, we could either take one thing off of list 6, or we could take a combination of any number of things below list 6, as long as that totals 6 in the end. So we could take something for 5 points. We could take a Panzer Grenadier squad, and then something for 1 point, a medic. Or we could take something from list 4, MG42 on tripod, and then something from list 2, Panzerschreck team, and so on and so forth. As long as the total of everything adds up to your allowed number of support points, you're allowed to do it. So that's how the list building part of chain of command works. So also, after the support lists are done in the book, there's going to be some special rules. So a lot of the stuff in the support list is self-explanatory, and MG42 on tripod with 5 crew, not much to say about that. But some of the things are going to have special rules with them. So for example, a senior leader in this platoon, the senior leader option may only be selected when your basic force has only 1 senior leader. And only one of these may ever be selected. So you can never have 3 senior leaders. And if there's any other special rules for certain support selections, it'll spell it out for you here. So that's an important thing to remember as well. Another thing you're going to find when you're building your list is your nation's special rules. So every nation's going to have its own set of special rules, and these are the German special rules. So the Maschinengewehr special rule just means that a leader can add his command initiatives to an LMG or a MMG, HMG, or whatever it is that the Germans are using, and he can add that number of dice to their fire as he's directing the fire and telling them where to fire. So that's one of their special rules. Another one's Handgranaten. That's an assault special rule where you get to throw some extra grenades and then charge in. So those are the special rules for the Germans. As I said, every nation's got their own. The Americans, for example, have one that's really good for scouts. They can move tactically 2d6, and they can be commanded at any range as long as they're within line of sight of their leader. So that's really good. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're playing the game and when you're building your list, is to keep these special rules in mind. So the last thing you're going to have is the Arsenal table. So the Arsenal table is a table that gives you all of the stats for all of the various support units that you're going to bring, usually any kind of armor or AT gun. So in the screen here we can see we have our tanks and we have our Panzerjägers. So it's going to give you their armor, their AP, which is their armor piercing ability, their HE, which is their high explosive, and it's going to give you their speed, and that's going to have special rules: fast, slow, average, and then there's any notes are going to be there as well. So some of these notes, like low profile, will give you bonus to being hit, or it'll tell you how many machine guns they have, or whatever the special rule happens to be for that vehicle. And of course there's going to be a table for any kind of guns that you bring, so howitzers, AT guns, stuff like that. They're going to have their own AP and HE as well. And then there's going to be also a separate one for handheld AT weapon. So the Germans are going to get one for their Panzerschrecks, their Panzerfaust. The Americans have the bazooka, so they're going to have one as well. And then the Piat, of course, is going to be on the British one. So any kind of handheld, man-handled AT weapons like that are going to have their own table. And there's also one really nice thing called the Consolidated Arsenal, which I'll put a link in the description as well. But that has a lot of stuff that isn't on any of these lists. So if you're looking for a kind of an obscure type of weapon or vehicle, it'll probably be on that Consolidated Arsenal. And I believe that's made with the CoCulator. But it's real handy, and it gives you all the stuff for every nation. So it's actually, I've heard, more accurate than the stuff in the rule book because it's been run through the CoCulator. So it might even be a little bit more accurate support point wise. And that's pretty much it. That's list building for Chain of Command. There's not really a whole lot to it, as you just take your historically accurate pre-provided platoon, you get your support points, and you build your list with the support points to attach to your platoon based on whatever you are doing in the mission, defending, attacking, or whatnot. So yeah, that'll do it for this one. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, let me know, and hopefully I got everything right. And with that, I'll go ahead and say thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys later.